Welcome to HurricaneCenterLive.com. I'm Alex Garcia, Director of the National Tropical Weather Conference and Executive Producer of these programs. These programs are made possible by USAA, the South Padre Island Convention and Tourist Bureau, and Plylocks Hurricane Clips. These programs are also a team effort with Bill Reed, the former Director of the National Hurricane Center, and Tim Smith, Chief Meteorologist of KRGV-TV. And now, here's Tim Smith.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to NTWC Live for this Wednesday morning. It's still active as expected. This season has just been off the charts in so many ways. And with the activity that's still going on today, Dr. Landsea is not going to be able to join us because he's a little tied up, which we appreciate him doing what he needs to do. And we'll get him back on with this message about climate variability and hurricanes at a later date. Instead, today we're going to have Barry Goldsmith from the National Weather Service in Brownsville, Texas, joining us in just a moment to talk a little bit about what's going on with Hurricane Delta, what's happened overnight as it went across the Yucatan Peninsula, and what we're looking at for that storm today. Before we go any farther, we want to thank our sponsors who are with us once again today, as they have been all season long, basically. Normally, of course, we meet in person on South Padre Island for the National Tropical Weather Conference, and we didn't do that this year because of the storm back in April, but the South Padre Island Convention and Visitors Bureau is with us nonetheless, and we appreciate them. South Padre Island is open and quite busy and practicing social distancing in a very effective way with all the regulations on the beach. You can just follow the rules. It's quite simple, and you can still have a great time, although right now the surf may be running a little bit high. The surfers will be out this week once again, as they have been more than once this season. I want to thank USAA. Boy, they jumped on with us a few years ago, with the National Tropical Weather Conference, and have been an important part of what we've been doing. And we sincerely appreciate everything USAA does with this program and other programs we do with the Storm Science Network. So thanks to USAA. And thanks to Plylocks Hurricane Clips. That's these little guys right here. Put those on your plywood. It's really simple. I'll give you a demonstration here in just a minute, but you put them on your plywood. See it there? Plylock. That's it. Of course, I don't have a window this small. This is a prop. But I do have them on all of my windows ready to go when a hurricane is threatening. It's in the garage right now. The plywood all looks just like this, just bigger. You literally slide it into the windows. These lock into the brick, and it protects your windows from a lot of flying debris. When the storm's over, you simply pull on it and take it back out. But rather than me telling you about that, let's let the folks at Plylocks sell you out the product. So here is a message from Plylocks.
Plylocks window clips are patented 8-shaped carbon or stainless steel clips engineered to fit 1/2, 5/8, or 3/4-inch plywood without nails, screws, or adhesives. Designed to fit in the 2.5-inch window inset of your brick, wood, or stucco home. They are installed in seconds, and they are an inexpensive, non-destructive way to protect your windows from high winds and airborne debris. To install, first measure each window casing and subtract 1/4 inch off the length and width measurement, leaving a 1/8 inch clearance all the way around. Next, cut your plywood to the recorded measurements. Make sure the clips fit snugly on the plywood. If needed, squeeze the Plylocks clips with your fingers for a tighter fit. If the window is 24 inches by 24 inches or smaller, only 2 Plylocks clips are needed on each vertical side. Excluded from this rule are circular, arched, or octagonal windows. Each clip should be placed on the plywood cover no more than 24 inches apart. Make sure the tension legs are facing towards you. Push the plywood covers with the Plylocks tension legs to the outside firmly into the casing. For larger windows or sliding glass doors, seam the plywood if needed, and use additional Plylocks clips spaced no more than 24 inches apart. For more direction on larger window installation, please visit our website. To remove, just release tension from behind the clip by putting your finger behind the tension leg and pulling towards you. Work the Plylocks clips on one side of the plywood sheet. Remove the Plylocks clips from the plywood and store in a dry place. Lock in protection with Plylocks.
Thank you to the folks at Plylocks for making this possible. They show those pretty silver Plylocks. Mine are black, but I think they all do the same thing. So thanks to Plylocks and all the sponsors for making this program a reality since back in March, really, once we all got locked down, bringing information to all of you out there. Once again, Dr. Landsea is not joining us today because of his work with the hurricane, but someone joining us very capable and a guy who's been incredibly busy this hurricane season, Barry Goldsmith with the National Weather Service in Brownsville. Barry, along with the rest of the crew in Brownsville during Hurricane Hannah, had to go into hiding for a little while because of a tornado that was very close to the National Weather Service office in Brownsville. And the great folks at Lake Charles took over for a little bit, Barry, while you guys were in your bunker. But I have a hunch that you've more than repaid the favor of them taking over for you over the last few weeks, as you guys have taken over the duties of a lot of their duties for the last few weeks with the National Weather Service in Lake Charles. Good morning, Barry.
Good morning, Tim. Good morning, Alex. Thanks for the allowing me to be here today and speak about Delta and other tropical activities this year.
It's been busy, and we appreciate you taking time to join us on short notice. Thank you, Barry. So talk to us about what's going on out there right now, Barry. We've got, obviously Delta impacting the Yucatan Peninsula this morning, last night and this morning, now making its way to the Gulf of Mexico. Lost some strength, but it's still an impressive storm, and now it's got some pretty warm Gulf waters to go over, so we could see some pretty good strengthening again, huh?
Right, so the current forecast has it strengthening from what's now a Category 2 storm as it's moving right along the northern coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. Quickly, we'll be scooting into the southern Gulf in the next 12 to 18 hours and re-intensify back to a Category 3 storm with winds somewhere between 115 and 125 miles per hour, we think. And then it moves along the periphery there around a upper level ridge that's been pretty robust in the Florida area out to the eastern Gulf, and a weak trough that's moving into places like Texas and the southern plains, and will curl around that and is forecast now to make landfall somewhere on the southwest or southern Louisiana coast around midday Friday.
Louisiana coast midday Friday. Now, let's talk about the Louisiana coast. Let's talk about Lake Charles. What are we looking at right now for them specifically? And then the area, Calcasieu Pass and places that were impacted so severely by Laura.
So it remains a bit touch and go right now, Tim and Alex, for exactly where the final landfall will be. There is some good consensus in the model guidance, though, that suggests it'll be closer to Vermilion Bay than it would be to Calcasieu Pass. But it's still in the realm of possibility and the cone of error, if you will, or cone of uncertainty that it could get that far west. And so there's definitely some pins and needles going on in the Lake Charles area. Right now, the current storm surge maximum forecast is for Vermilion Bay at 7 to 11 feet, but less than 4 feet, we think, from Calcasieu Pass westward to the Texas coast or Texas-Louisiana border. And that would be good news for them. This storm will be expanding in size, and the storm surge area will actually be larger than Laura because of its size expansion, which is not unusual for October cyclones that come into the Gulf. So Lake Charles still needs to be on guard. They'll be on the western periphery of some of those strong winds. It's just not good news for an area that was pummeled by Laura. Laura was a true Category 4, not too far from a 5 when you look at the wind gusts. And it is by far the strongest landfalling event we've had this year, and may end up being so even with Delta coming in. But it's the idea that they could get struck again in an area that's been compromised with power outages, severe wind damage, and storm surge damage along that southern Louisiana coast. They really can't take much more, and this is going to be tough for some areas that we'll see, unfortunately, an overlap.
It's pretty amazing, and it just goes with this season that has been off the chart from the beginning. Obviously, this will be our first landfalling Greek letter, will it not, of a hurricane. We've had tropical storms already make landfall with Greek letters, but our first landfalling hurricane with a Greek letter, is that right?
Yeah, certainly in the USA. I remember there was a Hurricane Beta, I believe, Nicaragua back in 2005. I don't recall if it retained that strength to Nicaragua, but for the U.S., not only are we having Delta making landfall as a hurricane, but of course we had Beta as a tropical storm. And if you think about the Gulf of Mexico shoreline, I'm not sure if Gamma retained its strength when it made it to the Yucatan Peninsula a few days ago, but 3 to 0 would be our number for Gulf of Mexico landfalls of Greek letters. It just shows how really active the season's been across the entire basin. This isn't just a year where we've had activity in the central Atlantic that's dominant, and people on the coastlines are saying, what season? 19 storms? Where were they?
Right.
No, everyone has felt this. There's a map out there that shows who's been under tropical cyclone watches or warnings in the USA, and I think it's just about every piece of coastline has been touched by a watch or a warning this season, which just shows the breadth and the depth and the breadth of the season so far. And we still have another month and a half to go, which is amazing.
We've been using that map on the air quite a bit on KRGV, showing all the watches and warnings. Now, there's a little area in the elbow there of Florida, the Big Bend of Florida, that hasn't been under warnings yet. But again, the season's not over yet. And there's a lot of time to go. And maybe this is a question we'll have to ask the Hurricane Center when it's all over with. But can we retire a letter of the Greek alphabet?
Wow, that's a great question, because if anything, Delta would be that letter. So we'll have to see about what ends up happening with the impacts from Delta. But yeah, the WMO, World Meteorological Organization, the Hurricane Center, again, I think they call it IV4. They're going to have some decisions to make if Delta does cause, hopefully, unfortunately, some impacts up there.
Exactly. Talk momentarily about the impact where you are, not necessarily Brownsville, but the Texas coast all the way down to here, which has been dealing with serious beach erosion from other storms already this season.
Yeah, and here's another round of it. It's interesting because the beach here at South Padre is one of the better surfing beaches, probably the best surfing beach in the Gulf of Mexico due to its shape. We get like Atlantic Ocean type wave action here. I count this as the 6th event since Hannah that has caused some degree of beach erosion, at minimum tidal run up into or to the dune line, which is amazing that we just got into the season where we typically see that from big high pressure cells in the Northeast US and general low pressure in the Bay of Campeche down to Caribbean. That typically happens in October with those king tides, but this is number 6. So we had Hannah, number 1, we had Lara, we had Cristobal actually in June caused a little bit of impact here, so that was number 3. Sally was not much here, but a minor event. Beta for sure, we had some impact. There was a cold front last week that came down, and because the beach was so eroded, we had water up to the dunes then. And now we had Gamma with a little bit of water to the dune line the other day, and now this is going to be kind of rivaling what we saw with Beta, perhaps close to what Ike did, due to the amount of water pushing west and the already high waters that we're seeing with the tide levels before this even gets here. So it's not good for South Padre. They're going to need to do probably a bit of replenishment before the next spring break comes around. And that may hold true also for the coastlines of Corpus, which had a much higher storm surge with Hannah. They also had some impact on the beach erosion from Beta just a few weeks ago. And of course, all the way up to the Galveston beaches where they've had issues from many of these storms too. So there may be a Texas-wide beach replenishment program coming up later this winter, but we'll have to see when this is all said and done. And hopefully, just for sake of getting done with this and on with the potential for what we'll see in terms of fixing the beaches, this is the last one. But we still have those tidal situations that could go into early November. So we're not out of the woods with beach erosion even after Delta goes by.
Let's go back to Delta now, and I'm going to share a graphic with you, Barry. I don't know if you've seen this yet or not, but give me just a second to bring it up on the screen that was posted yesterday. This guy right here. I don't know if you've seen that or not.
No, we're not seeing it.
You're not seeing it?
I
It should
see
be
it.
shared.
Okay, there you go.
There you go. It takes a minute to digest what's in this, but this is showing how long it takes storms to intensify. And you look at the, category 1, within the number of hours it takes. So if you Delta along the bottom, it was in about the 15 to 20% to how quickly it developed to a category 1. And look at it's off the chart, developing into a category 4 faster than anything in the last, since 1979. The rapid intensification that it went through as it approached the Yucatan Peninsula yesterday was just remarkable.
Yeah, this is really impressive. Alphabet, we had Hurricane Wilma, which formed in late October, I believe between the 15th and 20th of the month, in the same region, and it went quickly from category nada, if you will, nothing, even a wave, to the strongest, lowest pressure that we've ever recorded in the Atlantic Basin, 882 millibars, as a strong Category 5, and it wasn't very much longer than this. Not too surprising, we had precedents with Wilma. It was almost the exact same location of where Delta did its job yesterday to rapidly intensify. We had maximum oceanic heat content there. The best of the whole summer and early fall was in the Northwest Caribbean right before Delta got there, which means the depth of the 80+ degree water was, I believe, 200 meters. I'm not sure that number's right, but it was well deep into the ocean. You combine that with a moisture plume that was fairly large. The envelope initially was a pretty big swirl that was out there that the Hurricane Center was tracking. And then the third thing, of course, the wind shear went to near zero, according to Stacy Stewart, one of the expert hurricane specialists at the Hurricane Center. So those are our three ingredients, and they were all on super overdrive. In fact, we had rocket fuel down there for the water temperatures of the actual surface temperatures over 86 degrees Fahrenheit, and the depth of the 80-degree isotherm was way down there. So it's not a surprise to anyone, really, to see this thing go through that rapid intensification cycle. I was almost surprised that it didn't go to a 5, honestly, given those ingredients that were there. But for whatever reason, the banding in the inner core just couldn't get going. It was like one big, kind of tall, strong thunderstorm there. The cloud top temperatures, by the way, I've never seen it this low in a hurricane. It probably has been somewhere, but minus 97 degrees centigrade or Celsius is really impressive for the coldest cloud tops. I think Wilma was hitting the minus 90s as well. And again, these are very similar type of setups. The location of the track, of course, is way different. Wilma went through Cozumel for about 24 hours. It sat and spun and expanded in size, weakened to a Category 3, and then strengthened, I think, to a Category 4 briefly when it got back out into the open Gulf. Very large storm when it hit South Florida. The same thing is going to happen here to some degree with Delta. It will grow in size. This is a known situation for October storms. We're already seeing that now with that picture you've just put up. The size looks like it has at least gone up by a third, if not a half. Soon will be doubling when it gets into the southern Gulf. And that means that every coastline will have to face some degree of tidal run-up or overwash. And the worst will be where it makes landfall in Louisiana. But Texas is going to be dealing with quite a bit of this too, as you mentioned before. Big-time waves, and there's not much beach left. It's not a slope anymore, so it's got nothing to stop it from going into or through the dunes or carving out the dunes. And that's the difficulty of the system for Texas. But the good news for us, at least, is climatology is winning the day here, and that's good, because it's very hard to get a storm to come into Texas after you've got that first strong cold front, which we did last week. We had lows here in the valley in the upper 40s to lower 50s, very dry air. Those are both enemies of hurricanes, and the wind shear is still there. So it's been discussed about the wind shear will try to weaken the system near the Gulf Coast, but the good news for Texas is that it's not going to be able to make it too far west. It's getting steered by the ridge and the trough coming in to the northwest. Had that ridge been stronger, though, it could have been a different scenario for at least the middle and upper Texas coast. So there are historical cases in October hit, but here down on the lower Texas coast, it's very rare indeed for a storm to make landfall, but certainly to come up along and skirt the coast has happened. All the way back in 1837, the Racer storm did that. That Racer storm caused quite a bit of damage to an area called Brazos Santiago, which was no longer really viable after 1837 because of that hurricane. So it's following its climatological track to a degree here. What's amazing, though, is we're in the D's in the Greek alphabet. That it's still early October. It's just, kind of unconscionable.
That's mind-boggling. And as we look at this satellite image that's on the screen right now, you're sitting right about here. If you can, I don't know if my cursor is where it should be, but if you're sitting right about there, you're looking east and probably seeing the edge of that cloud shield. I'm back to the west. I'm back over in here, and I look out my window looking straight east, and I don't see the clouds at all from here. But and Alex is up here. You're seeing some clouds, but not directly associated. So right. Yeah, this shield is already quite large.
Yeah, it's very large, Tim. And what's interesting about the shield is that it's picked up the remnant of gamma. In fact, gamma got swallowed up into the circulation early on. Part of the reason why it degenerated so quickly It's now been completely absorbed by Delta. But those outer bands are kind of a combination of the larger swirl that was Delta earlier and what was Gamma. And so we are expecting some rain along the coast of Texas, I think all the way up and down it, beginning maybe as early as this afternoon. And that cloud deck will have some showers in it. We're seeing them in the Gulf now, about 60 miles offshore. And then it'll continue to spread in a little ways. It may be able to reach down here in the valley, Interstate 69, and then up along the coast around Highway 77 to 59 up towards the coastal bend of Victoria Crossroads. And then, of course, the actual swirl of Delta, the outer bands there that are associated with Delta are expected to get into the Houston, Galveston area up towards Beaumont, Port Arthur, where they are under a tropical storm watch right now for the potential of those 39 to potentially 73 mile per hour winds or gusts to reach that area. With the increasing size of the storm and still fairly good symmetry, that wouldn't surprise at all to see tropical storm force winds or gusts maybe as far down south as Galveston Bay.
Have you heard anything out of and I'll stop sharing, I think we've got enough of this, so give me just a moment here. Have you heard anything out of the Yucatan Peninsula, out of Playa del Carmen, Cozumel, Cancun from overnight? I have not. I know our friend Josh Morgan was in Playa del Carmen last night, and of course he always goes silent for a little while after a storm hits, but have you heard anything at all from down there?
Yeah, I think the only thing that we've heard is probably what everyone else has heard is the observations that were taken by some weather flow data points that were, I think, showing hurricane force sustained with gusts close to Cat 2, I believe, and a pressure I think was 975 or 976. So the center went right over them, but it did appear to weaken. It got to 955 millibars yesterday, then it rose to 956. I think overnight it rose even before it made landfall. So if it was a Category 2 rather than a 3 at landfall or even a 4, that will remain to be seen. That'll be a real big difference in terms of the impacts there. The one thing we can be sure of is that this was no Wilma. Wilma came in there, I think, as a strong 4. It sat just off the coast, and they were in the northern eye wall for, I believe, at least 12 to 18 hours, almost Dorian-like. And the devastation was pretty huge at parts of Playa del Carmen and other places there, south of Cozumel. We don't think that'll be the case here. I mean, there'll certainly be some damage, but in an area that's built for it, I think they'll probably end up getting by better, certainly better than they did with Wilma in 2005.
And this storm's moving quickly in general. I mean, it's good to see something that's not moving 7 miles an hour for a change. It seems like this season there's been so many storms that have been just crawling along. So, there'll be some rainfall when it reaches the Louisiana coast, but the rainfall, or wherever it reaches, but the rainfall shouldn't be the 20 to 30 inch rainfall totals as long as it keeps moving at that pace.
Yeah, I think last I saw was 6 to 10, locally 16. That may be the number. Again, it would be displaced a little farther east than what we saw with Laura, which is never great news, but it's better news for the Lake Charles area, which really got hammered back with Laura. And I believe 4 to 8, locally 12 in the southern Tennessee Valley, and into the Tennessee Valley, actually, that would go into southern Illinois, western Kentucky, western Tennessee, which will be, I believe, Saturday timeframe into perhaps Sunday. And then another 1 to 3 inches for the mid-Atlantic as it makes its recurve, which is just more rain for an area that's seen quite a bit as well, which is never a bad thing. I mean, it's always kind of, in the end, better to be in wetter ground than drier ground because drought is so devastating to crop production. But still, the flooding is not a good thing. So hopefully Louisiana will get through relatively better, I want to say is a word, not easy, but better than they did with other storms that dropped so much rainfall in the Gulf Coast. I mean, Sally was up to 30 inches, I believe, in that western Florida Panhandle and southern Alabama area. So like you just said, we're not expecting anything like that with this one, but it's just another event for a weary Gulf Coast. I mean, we are getting tired, and we just have to keep on going for another one. The season will be ending. The Western Gulf season will end soon, which is good news, but just hold on a little bit longer and stay safe, prepare, and let's get through this all together.
Good words. Thanks, Barry. And as we look at the 5-day outlook, Delta is the only thing on it, which is nice to see again after being so busy for a period of time last week that now we're back to one storm we can track for a while, keep an eye on the rest of the tropics, but hopefully we're going to quiet down again, at least for a little while. Barry, thanks for the great information today. Really appreciate it. And thanks for being ready to go on such short notice. We sincerely appreciate your willingness to be here today.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Alex. Always here to help. And we're all working these events and want people to stay safe. And let's keep on plugging away until we're done.
Thanks, Barry. We appreciate it. And we will be back tomorrow. And Bill Reed will be with us again tomorrow just to do another update on the storm, just so people know where it is, what it's doing. If you want to see it, Barry, you're welcome to join us then as well if you'd like to. We will reschedule Dr. Chris Landsea for whenever things quiet down and he's got more time to be able to to break away and do these things. We know that his time, like yours, Barry, and like everybody's, is very valuable, and we appreciate his ability to be here whenever he can. I want to thank our sponsors once again, USAA, for being with us once again, the South Padre Island Convention and Visitors Bureau, and also Plylock's Hurricane Clips for everything they do for us. Thank you for joining us today. We'll have other updates for you later on. Join us again tomorrow at 11 a.m. for another update on Hurricane Delta, the D storm. We'll try to find out if that name would be retired, if it could be. Thanks for joining us today, Alex.
All right. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. And Tim has already mentioned our sponsors. We'll be back again tomorrow with a special report with Bill Reed.